All right, our next presenter today has a degree in astronomy. He is the Mutual UFO Network's chief photo and video analyst. He hosts Sky Tour Radio on KGRA Radio, and is the host and creator of Sky Tour live stream on YouTube. This is where people can go in and watch live beautiful deep night sky objects materialize before your eyes in a matter of seconds, courtesy of the Sky Tour Observatory and its research telescope. He is the CEO of FX Models, a model making and visual special effects company specializing in digital, physical models, and organic visual effects in the film industry. He has an extensive work history in the film and television arena, appearing regularly on a number of network television shows, including NASA's Unexplained Files on the Discovery Channel and What on Earth on the Science Channel. He is characterized as the voice of science reason, yet full expects alien intelligence may be out there and possibly even here. His efforts creating the Aerial Phenomenon Detection System, formerly known as UFOTOG-2, a remote system to detect advanced propulsion at play in our local universe, with Academy Award winner Douglas Trumbull, promises to bring ufology into the 21st century. If extraterrestrial intelligence has managed to ply the vast gulf between stars and reach us, then science should be able to tell us so. Such results will back up the story so often heard from those who have encountered something strange in our skies. Join me in welcoming a cool guy, Marc D'Antonio.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Hey, thank you. And I want to thank Nancy and, of course, Brandy and the whole team at Ozark for having me back a second year in a row. I'm humbled. Thank you. They're wonderful people. And if I can just have these lights down just a little bit, I want to talk about what astronomers do. They'll come back up. I'm not trying to hide from you. Okay. We're all about faint signals. Astronomers look for faint signals from very, very distant places. Signals like this. Okay. These are the faint signals we're looking for. Our telescopes can see them. Radio telescopes can see them. And we're able to examine these, decipher them, and figure out what they're telling us. Sometimes they're elusive, and we don't know where they are, or they never show up again. Case point, the methane on Mars. Remember the methane on Mars? It was there, then it wasn't. It's never come back, all right? And sometimes these signals just appear briefly, right? And this brief appearance, okay, is like very fast. These are millisecond pulses. These are called fast radio bursts. Now, we talked about fast radio bursts on Sky Tour Radio on KGRA. We had a whole show on them practically. And these FRBs, as we call them, they last just thousandths of a second. But they traverse tens of billions of light years. Now, light is a strange beast. Light actually has a property that it diminishes in intensity by the square of the distance you are from the source. So you go twice as far. If something's emanating light, it gets twice as far. It's 4 times as faint. You go 4 times as far, 16 times, etc. After billions of light years, these fast radio bursts come in, and they are the most powerful signals we've ever seen across billions of light years. Can you imagine how bright they are at the source to be that powerful in our systems here? It's an immensity that we can't even comprehend. So that light that we see out there, that light is our commodity. This is what we seek. We seek those small signals, and all we can see are those signals. All we can see is the light coming from these distant objects to know what they are. That's the only way we can figure out what's happening up there. And as I said, sometimes it's gone and it doesn't come back. This is something that we just have to live with, you know. But we work on it. We got better systems. I mean, as we will see, some of the systems that we have now can show us things that are just, no pun intended, light years ahead of what we used to be able to see, okay? And I know Lee Spiegel presented the black hole the other night. Who saw that? Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, okay, because there's a very important thing we want to talk about with black holes, because they relate to this talk. But what I'd like to do is, with the concept of these faintest of signals that we look for, I want to take you with me on a trip. We're going to go on a trip looking out into the universe at, well, stars that may have planets. Because that faint light we see can show us that stars have planets around them. It shows us galaxies that are tens of billions of light years away. It shows us stellar nurseries where stars are being born and dying. And it shows us a lot more. But we'll go see, right? And we're going to do that right now. We're going to take off and do that. But first, raspberry. So, I like doing it. I've been a magician for years, so I can't help it. So, but I can tell, yes, you may turn those lights on, thank you. In our world, you know, we live in a planet that's, you know, the Earth, of course. Familiar with it? Okay. And, you know, we host abundant life here, okay? We have a life-sourcing planet. It provides us with a living environment that is good for us, we think, except, and I might have mentioned this last year, and by the way, I don't have toilet paper this year. Who remembers that? Okay, I'm sorry. For the newcomers who haven't seen that, they're going, what's he talking about? Why is he talking about bathroom stuff? I did a history of the Earth on a roll of toilet paper, which I walked out into the audience and did, and a lot of people were very nice to help me out with that. But it's visual, and I believe in visual stuff. I like to show people things this way, so I try to be visual, hence the little funny lights. So we have a planet that actually sustains us, except the truth of the matter is, it's probably not the best planet in the universe for humans. How about that? Believe it or not, there are planets that we're looking for that are potentially super habitable. Super habitable, that means that they're not as habitable, or they're more habitable than the Earth. See, in the Earth, we have tectonic plates. They grind and bump against each other. They cause earthquakes. They cause tsunamis. They cause death. People get killed, all right? We have cyclonic storms. We have hurricanes, cyclones by any other name. And these hurricanes will actually, you know, kill people, and we have tornadoes. We have ultraviolet energy that they actually can get through the atmosphere and give us skin cancers. I had one, you know. I got a whole head transplant. Well, no, I just got part of it taken off. And the other thing I want to say is I don't like podiums, so I'm not going to defend myself against the masses behind a podium. That's what the podium was invented for, by the way, for when leaders delivered bad news. And it originated with soldiers with shields to protect the person saying, you're not getting any more food. Are they throwing things? You know, and we've just kept that and held it over into the modern world. And I don't use them. You know, I figure if you don't know your stuff, and you're reading off of notes, just give them a handout. You know, and they'll read it themselves, you know, at their own leisure. So the bottom line is, if we can find a more habitable planet out there, then we should be able to. We should do so. And to do that, we have to understand our own planet to know what's to look for out there. Okay, so following on from that, we're a very curious species. Very curious. Probably too curious for our own good sometimes. And I got to say that, you know, just a few days ago, we saw this. Lee showed us this object, the black hole. Now, to try and make heads or tails of this, it's a strange beast. And here's how it works. They said to you, this was the accretion disk. It's this stuff that's circling the black hole before it goes in. But does it mean that we're actually looking at it from the top? And it's doing this? Guess what? It doesn't have to be. It could be right on like this. but you still see it like that. You go, what? Or it could be at an angle, and you'll still see it like that. You know why? The gravitational field of the black hole warps space. All right? And by warping space, what happens is you have this disk, and the light coming off the disk goes up, is now following the warp of space, and it bends over. And some of it that gets to you comes across the top. And if some now comes down below the bottom and comes across and comes from behind, it comes out the bottom. And because the disk is rotating, the light coming toward you is biased to the higher energy side. So that's why we have the crescent that's bright here. That was predicted within relativity. That was actually predicted in relativity, that we'd actually see that. And that's why when this was revealed, people said, oh, that's fake. That's computer generated. We couldn't say it wasn't. It is. It's just generated by a synthesis and integration of many computers and many sightings through many of these telescopes. This wasn't an optical image. This was a radio image. Radio astronomy, and you're hearing the sound in a tuner. Well, those are radio signals. Those are longer wavelength signals. And that's what that image is made of. And that dark spot in the middle, that's actually this is the hard part, it's a shadow of the event horizon of the black hole. It's not the event horizon. What's the event horizon? Well, it's the point where light gets so caught up in the folded space, that is the warp space, that it only has a path that keeps it going in a circle inside. Outside, it has half a shot of getting out, and then we see it. But once it's past that spot, space is warped so much that light ends up getting stuck and only can circle within. That's what they mean. It doesn't mean that light is being affected by gravity. Light has no mass, and only mass is affected by gravity. Wait, how could light be bent? It's not. Space is bent, and light is following space. See? It's a two-pronged thing. So you look at that, and you say, wow, this is very interesting. What the heck is it? And you hear about that. It's a black hole, right? And then you hear that the space is being warped. And light is following that curve. So if the curve takes it in this path that takes it around the black hole or into the black hole circularly, it'll do it. And that's what we see. Light's following space, and light has no mass. It doesn't have any business knowing anything about mass. It's a very strange thing, though. We talk about it sometimes having what's called relativistic mass. If you think that light has no mass, you're covered. You just say space is warped, light follows the warp. You'll never get it wrong in a test, I promise. I won't give you a test, I promise. Okay? So anyway, when we look at this, this was 55 million light years from Earth in the constellation of Virgo, which, by the way, when the sun sets, let's say that's south, it'll be right there in the sky. And just before I came here, the day before I came here, I did a Sky Tour live stream in the observatory where I had 30, 40 people at a time watching from around the world. And we actually looked at this object, but we saw the object that has the black hole in its heart. It's called Messier 87, and it's a gigantic elliptical galaxy. And visually, it's very unassuming. It's just a blob. You can't resolve it to stars. It's 55 million light years away. We just see the combined light of all the stars that are glowing. So at that distance, we showed people what it looks like, And I have a friend of mine who comes on with me sometimes, and a co-host as well. And together we talked about how M87, this Messier 87, this object, has this jet of material coming out of it, which is moving at what we call relativistic speeds. Now, it means it's moving at less than the speed of light, but it's mass, it's particles, it's streams of radiation that are moving out from this jet at near the speed of light. That's right. That's the speed of light, too. Trust me, I've been that guy, okay, with a really obnoxious ring on top of it, so I won't fault anyone if that happens, trust me. I've been the worst offender. Okay, so at this distance, then, when we're looking at something like this, it's very good that we can actually capture it, but how did we do that? Now, you read in the news, it kind of told you how we captured it. We had these like up to 8 observatories around the world. The Earth's a sphere, and it rotates, in clockwise, as seen from the top. And there's each telescope looking out of the sky, looking at this object, say it's over there, is going to do this as the Earth is rotating. It's going to keep looking, get observations until it has to shut down because it's on the other side of the Earth. Now, each of those observatories did that, putting out a swath around the Earth, effectively making the entire planet an 8,000-mile wide telescope. All right? And that's why we could see this object. Now, to give you an idea of how that works and how efficient that was, okay, this is the equivalent, its properties produce the equivalent of seeing the date on a quarter that was in Los Angeles, but seeing it from Washington, D.C. Does that give you an idea? Okay? I love colorful metaphors, you know that. And that's a good one. Seeing the date on a quarter from Washington, D.C. that's being held up in L.A. Right? That's what this was a good accomplishment. So I immediately looked at that and said, well, what if we did this with a visual telescope? You know, this hasn't been done yet. Would we be able to use the Earth's diameter and maybe integrate an image to show us planets, actual planets, around another star? Well, we know we can do that because we've already imaged planets around another star visually with a telescope on Mauna Kea, the Gemini telescope, and I'll show you that. And actually, there's been a 10-year program that actually shows them orbiting. I've got that in here. You'll like it. It's really cool. You know, it's dots moving around to those who don't know and don't care. Say, those are just dots. Yeah, they are, but they're significant dots, really significant dots. So this is the importance of the black hole. And you're seeing it, like I was telling you before, 55 million years in the past. That's the concept you have to consider. We call it look-back times. These are the look-back times. We're looking back in time at everything you see in the universe. Oh, and by the way, nothing in the universe is sitting still. So you're looking at a star that's right there in the sky right now. And if it's 26 light years away, it means you're seeing it 26 years ago. So it's moved. So you're not looking at the star. You're looking at the light train that's been coming to you for 26 years. Well, the light doesn't move with the star. Once it's emanated, it just keeps going. The star keeps on moving, emanating new light as it goes. And over time, that light just shifts in the sky. And we see stars move through the sky. There's a star like that now that's moving through the sky so fast that over a period of 4 months, you can actually visually watch it move in a telescope. We did it. You know, it's called Barnard's star. It's the second furthest star than Alpha Centauri, so it's the next one out. And it's like 6 light years or so. And every few months, if you take a picture of it and measure it against the background stars, you'll see that it's actually moved. A whole darn star moving that fast. Now, we're also moving. Again, nothing's at rest. Nothing at all. And that's what's so beautiful about the universe. Now, the other thing is that, you know, if we look at this, okay, we say the difference, okay, in finding exoplanets and alien life, the capability doesn't exist yet for us to actually see planets, see the atmospheres, and being able to, I guess, dive into the atmosphere to see what it's made of. The James Webb Telescope is going to go up next year. I said that last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. Okay, I don't mind how long it takes. They have to get it right. You know, I've worked on satellite projects where I've been, you know, in the bay where they're putting these satellites together. I've watched people get fired because they got closer than 3 feet to the satellite and they weren't wearing the braid to keep the charge off their bodies. You know, I did that because it was a special project. But the bottom line is, okay, this object is an image of the destroyer of the universe. This black hole is so big that it's many times the distance in radius than the distance from here to Pluto. Many times that distance, okay? Something like 6 or 7. Stupendous comes to mind. Colossal comes to mind. Mind explodes, turns to mush comes to mind the most, right? I mean, if you think about it, that's huge. So it's a little bit crazy. But, you know, distant galaxies, like I say, they're not the only ones with these grand destroyers, okay? We have one too, the center of our galaxy. And it's not 55 million light years away, it's just a few tens of thousands of light years away. Right in the middle of our galaxy, it's called Sagittarius A. How do we know? We have a video. These are real stars, whole stars, whipping around the black hole in the center of our galaxy. Look at that. Okay? Watch this. Wow. Okay? That's a whole star that's caught by the black hole. Where's the object in the center? You can't see it. It's black, right? That's the whole point. So you see what I'm saying? This is the interesting data that we catch. And this is if you look at the dates, okay, look at the time. It went from 1992 all the way into 2000. It takes that long to see these vast scales, vast things and these vast scales occur. So this is like 2004 or so. So this is a lot of years it took to just generate this one little tiny video clip. But they're actually moving around this black hole. Let me just put it another way. This supermassive, monstrous black hole that's eating anything in sight in the center of our galaxy. Okay, that part was a lie. Okay, as long as it stays in orbit, it doesn't care. You know, things will keep orbiting it. But it's growing because as that whips around, maybe there's some of that stellar material that's bleeding off and going into that black hole. And that will make it grow in mass and thus in size. And that star we just saw whip around right there might not be there in 50 years. It might have been absorbed by the black hole. Or the next time we do this, we'll see this. We'll see the star moving very rapidly around the center because it's now in that spiral of death. You know, so pleasant, huh? The universe is always trying to kill us no matter where we look. Okay, but it's so true. But that's a very interesting fact. So we go from the ultimate destroyers of the universe, these black holes, these supermassive monster megalodons of the universe, and we come to our planet. Oh, that's better. The places where life can be generated. Okay, this is at the other end of the spectrum entirely. Now we're here on the planet Earth where life was fostered. The planet that's in the habitable zone, where we can have liquid water on our surface. Yes. Okay, look. At room temperature, we can have liquid water. You know, if this was a different lecture, I would show you how this can both boil and freeze at the same time. That's true. I've done that. Okay, it's the triple point of water. Look it up. I'm sorry. I can't keep a secret. You know, it's really a cool thing. Anyway, so we're at the other end of the spectrum, and we have processes on our planet that have provided life for us. Okay, we are predisposed on this planet to hosting life. Okay, that is to say, the planet was predisposed. And the reason is because life was, actually, the building blocks of life were brought here by meteorites, asteroids, and comets. Okay, and they are also created by the Earth's own processes. Well, in the early 50s, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey created this little experiment. They had water, methane, and ammonia in this little flask, and they bombarded it with a spark. They had a water reservoir down there, and the water would be evaporated and come in here, rain, basically. They're creating the water cycle. And then what they did was they waited a week, and after a week, okay, I don't know why that was so dark, sorry. After 1 week, amino acids were found in the flask. Building blocks of life. Earth did it all by itself. We had nothing to do with it. We weren't here. You know, now you might say, well, did aliens come here? Were there extraterrestrial species that might have come here and, you know, helped us along? We can't answer that. Now, as a person of science, I can't say, absolutely not. Well, I could, but then I'd be what they call arrogant. And we don't like that. I don't like arrogance in science. It's one of those things that I think kills science. Okay? You can't have arrogance. If your shirt tail's hanging out, just be proud of that. Say, yeah, look, my shirt tail's hanging out. Okay, whatever. Don't be arrogant and try to be perfect, because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it perfect. We can't, because we don't have enough information. We've only been here for a tiny bit of time. The last, for those who remember, the last sheet of toilet paper was about a width of a hair, and that was 117 feet long that wound all around the center section, those poor souls. And that last little width of the hair at the end of the sheet represented the last 5,500 years on Earth and the beginning of our written history. That's where history began for us, Sumeria, cuneiform language. And that's the point at which we come into the picture and assume this arrogance. We know everything. We can figure this all out. No, we can't. Okay, the universe has other mysteries in store for us, and it existed for over 9 billion years before the sun ever existed. So certainly, there should have been an alien life form that came along and possibly grew to dominance, collapsed, grew to dominance, carried out missions around the galaxy, flourished, came here and said, ha ha, look at them, and kept going. Because anywhere along that 117-foot history that I had last year, which, in other words, anywhere in the history of the Earth, alien beings, if they exist, would be here, have come here, possibly seen the status of what's going on here, and moved along, categorized our planet in whatever way they felt fit, and moved along. If they were here 2.8 billion years ago, there'd be nothing but cyanobacteria making oxygen, which is important for us. And if you think about it, those little oxygenators, that was their waste product. So you're breathing bacteria poop. I'm sorry. But hey, let's call it what it is. All right? And that's okay. I mean, we're all the same planet together. We can share the same bottle, same bottle of water. Anyway, okay, that went too far. I'm sorry. So, the first life on Earth were these cyanobacteria that I just mentioned. They were here anywhere between 2.8 and 3.2 billion years ago. They argue. Sometimes they say, they were here sooner, sometimes later. I don't care. They were here. Okay, it was way back. That was far back, And these were basically the green slime you see currently at the shores on some lakes. That little green slime, that you slip on. That's why you get all soaked. Wow, green slime. Hey, Frank, you fell on the oxygen makers. That's pretty good. Thanks. You found them all. Yeah, but that's the green slime we're talking about. And that stuff is, besides being very slippery, if left alone, they would build up. Okay, when they build up, they form these things called stromatolites. And on the shore of Australia, there are these massive, they look like mushrooms, but they feel like rock. These are actually fossils of ancient life. And the way they work is these blue-green algae would lay down this mat of living, algae, and then they would, of course, be covered by sand and other silt. They would die, and another one would form. But they're photosynthetic. They want the sun. Please. Okay, and so they would build up, and they would build this like hemispherical top to favor getting the most sun. And that's what we see. That's why they're shaped like little mushroom caps. Really interesting. And then the fossil's all that remains. Except maybe on the top of them there's a new layer. It's ubiquitous. It's been here since the beginning, almost. And that's fascinating how, if you think about it, what caused that life to come into being? What happened? Why was there life that far back? Was there some kind of template provided by the universe? I'll speak to that because, I'll say this. We are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur beings. If you want to think of it easier, it's chomps. Okay? DNA is made of that. You're made of that. That chemistry is a carbon-based chemistry provided by the Earth itself, meteors, asteroids, as I said, and comets, and life forms that started utilizing it, pumped more carbon-favoring elements into the atmosphere, like the oxygen that we so need. And then we took advantage of that. So being those kinds of beings who favor that type of chemistry comes automatically because the universe provided that. It's like the universe said, here you go. Do whatever you're going to do. It made the Permian era. It made creatures from the Permian dinosaur era 252 million years ago. And at that point, we, mammals, pre-mammals, not us, but before us, were the dominant species on the planet, And then we had the great Permian dying, where 96% of life forms died. That 96% included most of the pre-mammals and left these niches wide open for reptiles. And thus began the age of the dinosaurs, all because of an extinction event. Okay? And then, 65 million years ago, we had the impact off the Yucatan. It's called the Chicxulub. Say that 3 times fast. The Chicxulub impact. That impact, also known as the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary impact, that impact actually it affected the dinosaurs and those reptiles most. And the little mammals hiding in the shadows now had a way to come back through all these open niches. And they were like, hey, Bob, let's go. They're waiting for us. And out they came, and here you are. It just took a few million years. But think about it. How different would it be had it gone another way, right? That keeps me up at night. Wondering, what would my kids look like? Oh, you reptiles are so cute, I love your tail, So anyway, that's here on Earth, and we're also interested in looking off the Earth. And we go outside of the Earth, and we talk about the solar system and possibilities of finding life. Why would we do that? Because the solar system itself could have helped in seeding our planet with the essential materials to create life. We found Martian meteorites here, identified as being from Mars, okay? And we found other materials and meteors that come from other ice bodies in our solar system. Well, ice is essential, and those ice bodies sometimes deliver amino acids. There's a meteor that fell called the Murchison meteorite. It actually delivered amino acids to our planet. That's fantastic, and that's, again, the universe is doing anything in its wake to create a carbon-based life. So am I a carbon bigot? Okay. Guilty. Okay? Carbon-based life forms are a thing that the universe provides for. Are there other like silicon-based life? Maybe. But the carbon atom has a unique property that silicon doesn't. The carbon atom can bond with many, many, many different things. In fact, the most bonds of any element in the periodic table come from the carbon atom. So it's the most versatile. And it just stands to reason that it became, it's the granddaddy of all periodic table elements. That's kind of how it's known. So it's a really interesting thing, And now we know that we require water here on this planet, right? We know life requires water, right? And I think that we know that the solar system has it aplenty. It has plenty of that water. Europa around Jupiter, Enceladus at Saturn, Titan, okay? Saturn's moon, Titan, which is as big as a planet, has water ice aplenty, locked up hard as granite, below its surface. And so there's a lot of options for us. Now, little tiny Enceladus at Saturn is only a 300-mile moon, but it has these geysers that are amazing, okay? It has these water ice geysers that are spewing out of its south pole. And when Cassini crossed the south pole of Enceladus, guess what it saw? It saw, don't say Enceladus, okay? As it crossed Enceladus, it saw in the south pole, it saw that there were the heat sources coming from deep below the Enceladine ice at the South Pole. And they look just like the deep ocean hotspots where we have found these hydrothermal vents on Earth. So that led to, in fact, we wouldn't have ever looked and thought of that as important unless we found life at these deep hydrothermal vents on our own planet. The life there isn't photosynthetic on our oceans. That's chemosynthetic life, way at the ocean bottom. There's no sunlight. So could the same thing be happening there? Yeah, you betcha. Why not? It might need a little more time, or maybe the conditions weren't right for it, but that is very promising to us, And it's not only Enceladus that shows us this. We have it at Jupiter, too, with Europa. Now, Europa is like 1,930 miles across. It's a fairly big moon of Jupiter, and it might actually have a water ice ocean beneath its surface, under the crust of the ice. This is also a location where life may be possible. I think that's cool. Now, if we look actually at Enceladus up close, Europa up close, we see these brown objects. What are those? Well, those are cracks, where obviously the ice is cracked and refrozen. Now, as an astronomer, we read that as dynamicism. Something dynamic is going on there. Enceladus is cracking and refreezing, just like Pluto. Pluto's doing the same thing. It's resurfacing itself. Something is coming up from the inside that's depositing these brown things on the surface, these brown sediments, this brown chemistry at the top, and it's going back down. A slow-motion convection cell, going on Europa. And this material is something that we can identify through spectra and we see, well, this is stuff that life is made of, okay? It's everywhere. We can't get away from it. Remember when we thought, well, there's only Earth, there's only life here, there's no life anywhere else. Boom. And like, that was the end of it. That changed, because now we're saying, well, we're thinking maybe life is possibly everywhere else, even in our own solar system. I mean, they found microbes living on the outside of the International Space Station. Remember that? Yeah. Trust me. Microbes, but still, life. Still important. So here's the Europa cutaway. We think might have anywhere from a 60 to 100-mile deep ocean underneath the ice. And you get down a certain depth in there, and you get to a certain depth within Europa. Can you see that? Okay, good. You get down to a certain depth, and right about maybe here, the pressure in the water is a comfortable pressure that you could actually swim in. Because, again, Europa is only just under 2,000 miles across. So its gravity under the water is not going to be the same as being a mile underwater here, okay, or 10 miles underwater here. We don't have 10, we have 7. But if you go underneath the European Ocean, the pressure is going to be very different. So who's to say that the life that could evolve there, possibly evolve there, might not look very different from ours? It could. But I'll say one thing, I'll bet it's carbon-based. That's the template. We see it everywhere. So this is the most fascinating thing I've ever saw. Okay, now looking up at Europa, the Hubble Space Telescope identified hydrogen and oxygen spewing out of those geysers on Europa as well. This was the Hubble observation of 2012. Why is that important? That's important because hydrogen and oxygen are, of course, a component of H2O, obviously, which is 2 hydrogen and oxygen, water. And we know that water is something that also leads to another thing that is called methane. Methane is a carbon atom, that ubiquitous carbon atom, and it's 4 hydrogens attached, all right? And that little molecule is an indicator of life in some cases, especially if found with things like carbon dioxide. Don't worry about any of that. But just understand that if we find methane, it means that there's a niche that's open at Europa for microbes that eat methane, just like here at those black smokers, as they used to call them, right? Those subsurface hydrothermal vents. We have that happening, and methane's created down there, and these little bacteria eat that methane, and then you got these filter feeders that eat the bacteria, and you got these other creatures that eat the filter feeders. It just goes on and on. So we have that possibility, and that's just very fascinating to me. This is an overlay showing the geysers and their location on Europa, so you can see that we're not talking about an insignificant amount of space that these geysers are affecting. It's flying off that moon, and it's going up into space around the moon, and as Europa goes around, there's probably water particles and ice in space in its orbit. And then as it comes in, as Europa keeps orbiting, it'll impact that ice, which will then settle back onto the surface of Europa. So it'll also induce changes all over the place. There's so much dynamic stuff going on here. It's crazy. Now, if we want to talk about other worlds, all right, we can finally leave the Earth and go talk about some other worlds. And we know that the Kepler Space Telescope is something that was one of these systems which operated for many years, launched in 2009. And when it actually got up there, we were astonished at how many planets it found. And it's actually just over 4,000. That's the actual number of planets that we've found up there so far. And by the way, that's in a little stretch of space the size of your fist, extended at arm's length in the summer sky, looking up, right, in August. Cygnus, the swan. So a little space about that big, a little bit smaller, is how much space that we found 4,000 planets in. There's a lot of those fists out there, put them all together, add them up, that's a lot. You can fling your fist at space, there's a lot of planets out there. So that's, Kepler was great, and unfortunately, it did die. It looked at over 100,000 stars, and it found over 4,000 planets, and I know, that the next one, TESS, is going to find even more. TESS stands for Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite. It was just launched last year or year before, I believe. David Thompson is the CEO of Orbital ATK that built it and put it up. And I did a project for David some years ago, actually 2 years ago, So I got to talk to him about TESS and all the accomplishments. TESS is a wonderful satellite because this is now the successor to Kepler. Okay, Kepler didn't have a 24 by 96 degree field. That's like this in the sky, okay? That's like a swath like this that you can see in the sky. Kepler was like a laser point. It was like it just saw one little star at a time. TESS sees thousands and thousands of stars at a time, and it can differentiate and figure out how many of those stars are undergoing transits where if there's a planet passing between us and the star, we might pick it up. And TESS can see that in this gigantic swath of planets. It's absolutely immense. And it's expected to find over 20,000 planets in 2 years. Okay? Now, if you don't think that's going to add to our knowledge of Earth-like planets out there, there's the door. Okay? This is going to absolutely floor science when the actual data comes in. All right? And it's already found 4 planets, by the way, and it's only just finished its calibrations. It just got underway and said, "Oh, by the way, I found 4. Yeah, keep it. It's going to keep coming. Hang on. Don't close the book." Yeah, you're going to be writing for a long time. So TESS is great. And Kepler looked for these transits, like I said, where here we have this planet crossing in front of its star, okay? And this diagram shows us a few things that are important. When a planet first enters the star, this is meant to be its atmosphere, this little thing around this black planet here. The atmosphere, as it first enters the star, will see what's called contamination in the star's spectrum, in this case, the red star. This is like a binary system, where you have 2 stars orbiting each other. Well, that contamination could be detected, and we can see what's in the planet's atmosphere. See, and that means now, hey, what would we look for? I'm kind of interactive, so I'll let you answer. Okay, what do you think an important chemical in the atmosphere is that we should look for? I heard it many times. Yeah, oxygen. Okay. Now, we're putting up the James Webb Telescope, and I know for a fact that it cannot detect oxygen. Wait. That seems like a waste. What happened? Shouldn't you be able to detect oxygen? The problem is oxygen is in the visual spectrum. The lines of oxygen show up where we see with our eyes. It's in the visual spectrum. The James Webb Telescope is an infrared telescope. It's not in the visible part. It's not in the blue part. It's working out here in the red spectrum. But guess what else is out in the red spectrum? Carbon dioxide, which I heard over there, and methane. Now, we can infer oxygen if we find carbon dioxide and methane. That is really important to understand. It's just as good as finding oxygen. You remember Stephen Hawking said a few years ago, we shouldn't announce our presence to the universe at all. Who remembers that statement, right? And he said, let's just be quiet, don't tell them we're here. Unfortunately, we've told them we're here without even trying. In fact, we started telling them we were here just about 2 billion years ago. Why? Because the bacteria that were making oxygen were producing an oxygenated atmosphere. And if there's an advanced civilization out there, based on the carbon template, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to look for oxygen if they're oxygen breathers as well. Is it guaranteed they breathe oxygen? No. But it's highly likely. Hate to tell you. So they would look for an oxygenated planet, and they would show up. If they had the technology, they'd show up. They might find green slime, or they might find us. No, it's not the same difference. No. Okay. Go figure. No, but the thing is, okay, they would show up here, and they would check it out and see what's going on here. And we've announced that for billions of years. Hi, we're oxygenated. Yeah, don't come here. Stay away, please. Yeah, I know you have superior technology. Don't show up here. Oh, hi. You're here. Yeah, good to see you. What's that blue beam? Come back, Travis. Travis is a good friend. It's okay. Yeah. He and I have very good astrophysics discussions. That man is very smart, by the way. He comes off like he's a logger from Snowflake, Arizona. But sit him down and talk to him about astrophysics. The guy just impressed me. Great guy. So anyway, little side note over there. Remember my side notes? Side note. Okay, so This is how we look for planets. We look for the transits where we're getting a slight diminishing of the light from the main star because something's crossing in front of it. This is, by the way, a highly, did I say highly, exaggerated type of dimming. That's a giant object. The planets that cross in front of the star, if this was the size of the star, the actual size of the planet would be smaller than you could see with your eye standing here. But the diminishment of the light would be enough that we could detect with our instruments. The same materials that allowed us to detect this black hole, okay, the same type of technology advances allow us to see these kind of planets that are crossing in front of the star. It's really quite fascinating, you know. And as I said, this is like a double star that we use with a transiting planet. And you also see a little bit of an atmosphere there, that little ring around the black, as I said. And we can see all of those things. Just not to the quality that we need. You know, James Webb isn't going to be able to see oxygen, as I said. It will see carbon dioxide. It'll see methane. That's important. You know, like I said, the two together is what's important. The two together will infer oxygen and life. All right? And that's what we're looking for. So it's not going to be a failed project at all. It's going to be a brilliant project. So now we have to talk about the stars. There's many kinds of stars out there, okay? And many of the images here are images I created because I've done a lot of artwork in the past. So this is something called the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. Don't worry about the name. It's just a plot of color of the star across the bottom with their brightness across the top, okay? So in this case, the sun is right there, okay? So 1 times the brightness of the sun right there. And these are the colors. They go from bright blue to lesser blue to almost white to a yellowish to a more yellow to an orange to a red. Okay? OBAFGKM. When I was getting my degree in astronomy, the head of my department said, well, you know how you remember that? No, it's OBAFGKM. No, it's O be a fine girl, kiss me. I'm like, what if you're a girl? He's like, guy. Well, be a fine guy, kiss me. And it's like, no, I prefer to just memorize the letters, thank you. You know, that's how I swear to you, that's how I was taught. But they do go from the hottest and bluest to the reddest. These are the hottest and brightest, shortest lived, to the smallest little percolators in the universe. These stars, these M-type stars, they live trillions of years. Our sun's going to live 10 billion. We're halfway all through that. Okay? These little red stars here, these last trillions of years. Those are little percolators sitting out there chugging away. Okay? And by the way, they're the most populous star in our entire galaxy and in the universe. When you look at a beautiful starry sky from the darkest place on Earth, you can't see a single one of those guys with your eye. They're all too faint. They're sometimes 100th or less as bright as the sun. None of them are visible to your eye. None of them. Not one. But they're the ones that have the most planets around them of any other star. So good luck, you know. So, but there's other planets, other stars that have planets around them. We got one, you know, our star. So this diagram is just meant to show you the types of the stars across the bottom and the brightness. These guys here, these last probably a couple 100 million years at most. Then they explode in the most massive, unbelievable explosion of the universe, one of them, a supernova. You know, they stop fusing their elements to make these new elements, and that outward pressure of radiation stops, and that inward pressure of gravity wins, and the star goes boom. A gigantic star that would be so big that it'd be bigger than the orbit of Jupiter, out past Mars, Jupiter, diameter. If a star that size stops fusing the materials to keep its pressure pushing out, to keep making new elements, it would collapse all the way down to a core in 1/4 of a second. That big. That shows you how much of a force gravity is. And the star is always fighting that gravity, okay, the pressure outward. It's always pulling its walls up with radiation pressure. That radiation pressure is part and parcel to how the star, you know, sends out its energy that we end up feeling. But it's a balance against the gravity trying to crush it. So it's just an amazing sequence, you know, how these stars work. So in the first case, we have these O stars. The O stars, the hottest and the bluest, as I said. They're extremely powerful, extremely bright. And as an example, in Orion's belt, Orion, there's Betelgeuse, there's Bellatrix, there's Rigel, there's Saiph, and there's Alnitak, Alalam, and Mintaka, the 3 belt stars of Orion. The leftmost belt star is Alnitak, and it's a big, giant O star. And it's probably only a few million years old, probably about 3 or 4 million years old. When Lucy came out of Olduvai Gorge and walked, as a hominid, our ancient ancestor, Alnitak wasn't in the sky. Lucy didn't care, But still, Alnitak, setting the stage here so you can see, Alnitak wasn't in the sky yet. Okay? And it's possible that some of these other belt stars over here were also not there. Orion had less stars. Amazing stuff, And now, these stars are very powerful, very bright, and very high temperature. So that we have stars that were 53,000 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, which is 30,000 Kelvin. Kelvin's a temperature scale that was created so we could have absolute zero and no negative numbers. Okay, so there you have it. That's a very hot star, and when they went off, they always end in supernova, always. And all the materials they were forging in their furnaces get spewed to the cosmos. It's like a cosmic vomit, right? I mean, it just explodes, and it all goes out there. And during the explosion, even more stuff is made. And so next we have the B stars, and this is actually a famous little set of stars that you can see in the winter sky in the constellation Taurus. And I know someone knows. Go ahead. Yeah, that's right. Subaru. Well done. Okay, this is the symbol of Subaru as well. It's the Pleiades. That's correct. These are hot blue stars, and they're just traveling through our neighborhood, so to speak. All right, and they're going through this dust cloud. This is dust, and they're blue. They're very hot and blue, and they're actually illuminating the dust by reflection. We're seeing it by reflection. Look at that. It's beautiful brushed strokes. It looks like brushed aluminum almost. It's beautiful. And it's just because they're passing through that dust. They're not creating it. They weren't born in it. All right? And then, but the Pleiades are an example of the second type of star. And there's no planets possible here generally, although I lied. There is the possibility that we've found some planets around B-type stars. But they're not going to be early Bs, like you have B0 through 9. You have O0 through 9, that kind of thing. It'd probably be like B8, B9, where we might see something like that. Early on, there's too much blue light, ultraviolet energy, that would sterilize anything that's trying to be a carbon template-based life form. Another type, I can't answer that. I don't know. But I won't say it doesn't exist. I just won't do that. I'm open-minded to know that. So these Pleiades then are an example of the B-type star, and you see them every winter. They're above Aldebaran, the bright red star in Taurus the Bull, and you'll see them think, what is that little thing? Oh, that's the Subaru. That is the Pleiades. Those are the 7 sisters from mythology, right? So now next comes the A stars, and so we're going down OBA. Well, you've seen A stars, you just don't know it. Okay, A stars are 10,000 Kelvin. They're 17,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and their surfaces. And this is an image of the stars you've seen. You say, well, what does that mean? I can't see that. What's that? Well, these represent the summer triangle. In the summertime, in August, you look straight up. The three brightest stars you see are going to be this star here, Altair, that star there, Deneb, and that star there, Vega. Okay? Vega and Altair are normal hydrogen-infusing stars like our sun. Deneb is a supergiant star, and it's really big, very powerful. All right? But these are the 3 stars that are over your head. They're all A-type stars. Okay? And these 2 could possibly have planets. In fact, we know Vega has a dust ring around it. Did you know that? Vega has a dust ring that could actually lead to planets if it hasn't already. We just haven't found them. All right? And so that's pretty cool. Then we go to the F stars, the F-type stars. Now, we're getting cooler and a little bit more yellow, and then we'll get to the reds. But F-type stars, well, these guys are about 7,000 Kelvin, 12,000 Fahrenheit. And these stars actually are very prevalent as well. You can see these with your eye. In fact, in SkyTour live stream, we saw this one called Tabby star. This was an image of Tabby star, and Tabby star is that star that has been dimming over 100 years in a really weird way. And people were saying, well, maybe it's an alien megastructure. A Dyson sphere. Who's heard of that? The Dyson sphere concept, right? That's where a civilization is building something to totally encapsulate their star and take all the energy from it that it can. That's a Dyson sphere. Well, why not? Freeman Dyson thought of it. Why wouldn't an advanced civilization think of it? Well, to make one, the stupendous amount of engineering that would be required to be probably far beyond any civilization, frankly, because they would have to actually work out a way to keep that thing structurally sound as the star's gravity is trying to collapse it. That's probably not possible. What's more likely is they would actually create a swarm of satellites in ever-increasing numbers. There's the key, ever-increasing numbers. And that ever-increasing number would eventually cause anyone viewing the star from a distance to see a dimming star over a lot of years. And that's possible. It's still on the table, and I know that stars like this, they actually think, well, we think that there's probably a dust cloud that's passing through there. Okay, that's possible. Okay, did you see it? Well, no. Okay, so it's, again, just a theory. I like mine better. Someone's building a Dyson swarm of satellites to capture the energy from their sun. Can't say that for sure, And then there's us. Yes, the G-type star. And for this star, we're 5,400 Kelvin, which means just 9,000 Fahrenheit, just over 9,000. And I show this with an example. This is the sun here, and this is Alpha Centauri over here in the middle. Alpha Centauri is actually a triple star system. The nearest star system to us besides the sun is a triple star. There's A, there's B, and then little Proxima. And these will serve to show us well what we're talking about here, because the sun and Centauri A are almost identical. Centauri A is a little bigger, but it's a G-type star. In fact, it's a G2, like our sun, with that G0 through 9, breakdown. That's the G2, and that's a G2. We got two G2s, yay. Okay? They should have a G2 summit. Well, yeah. Okay, come on. I just made that up. Oh, don't ever say that joke again. Yeah. No. But the G2 stars are important to us, obviously. It means that these are stars that can support life if they have planets at the right spot where liquid water can exist. And that's very important to everybody in this room. But here we have those two. And now, if we move on to the K stars, don't worry, we'll see this other diagram again. Now we move on to the K stars. These are even cooler, and I mean less temperature. They're still really cool. I mean, this is all very cool. You better think it's cool. No, I was kidding. So, and these are planets, stars that are about 3,400 Kelvin. You can see the relative scale is going down, or just 5,600 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's cooler, it's getting lower temperature. And this leads us to look at Centauri B. It's a triple star, remember? Well, Centauri B is a K star. This is a G star. Ours is a G star. So we have a G star, a K star, only 4.3 light years from us. Let's go. Well, we'll have the technology eventually to go, and I've done a talk about that, I think, before. I know I have, but I don't know if I did it here. But so those are the K stars, and they're less temperature, but they also, again, everything past A, by the way, can have planets and possibly bear life and support life. Okay, and that's what's really cool about it. So now, I was laser hitting my screen there for a minute. There's another star that's a K star, and it's called Epsilon Eridani. Now, you've seen that in science fiction, maybe. Have you seen this in science fiction? There are certain science fiction stories that have Epsilon Eridani as their main star, kind of a thing where they go, and they have a planet that they say is fictitious. Okay, well, maybe not so fictitious. Okay, it turns out that Epsilon Eridani actually has a dust ring around it, and here's the size of our solar system compared to it. All right. So you can see that this dust ring around Epsilon Eridani, and I say Eridania and Eridani interchangeably. I probably shouldn't, but I do anyway. I can get away with that. They correct me once. So bottom line is that this shows this dust ring, and the dust rings are usually remnants of formation of planets. And there's actually at least one known planet there with a second one that may be confirmed soon. And that's a very important point, because now it's almost like science fiction becoming science fact. Gee, will there be a planet there that we can move to? That'd be cool. Yeah, who knows? And then we come to my personal favorites, because I like the color. No, because M is a beautiful. These are beautiful because they're very, very low temperature, 3,000 Kelvin, or only like 4,900 Fahrenheit at the surface. Yeah, no, you wouldn't touch them. They're still very hot, obviously. But these are amazing, and it's little Proxima down there that we talked about before, and our whole assemblage here. Proxima is one of those, and Proxima is one of those stars that I think is just probably. The most, there's a word I want to use here. Attractive. Okay, it's the most attractive because it's nearby, but Proxima has a planet around it that we've already identified. You've heard of Proxima b? Yes, you have, I'm sure. And Proxima b, they say, well, I'm not sure if it's going to be habitable. Yeah, maybe not, okay? But, we have other worlds that we're going to talk about where planets have been found that that are more Earth-like than we ever thought, okay? And one of them is Proxima b. Proxima Centauri b. This is an artist rendering. I did not do this picture. I have others like it I've done, but I did not do this one. But here you can see Proxima b. Now, it's a small red star, but when you're up close to it, of course, it's going to be pretty big, right? So we see the relative scale of how it looks relative to the other stars that we know, which are this one and that one. This is A and B in their places relative to how it looks from Proxima b. So you see they're just bright stars in the sky from Proxima b, all right? But Proxima itself is the dominating star there because you're closer to it. Incidentally, when you're surrounding an M star, because they're only like 100th sometimes as powerful as our sun, you're going to be that much closer to the star. And so when you get closer to the star, a few things happen. You might have a planet, okay? Say the planets rotate, planets rotate, but if it gets too close to the star, then it can do something called become tidally locked. So the same face, just like the moon, the same face of the planet will face the star as it goes around the star, like this, okay? And if it does that, it means that the tourism trade could really be booming there, I'll tell you why. You could have a tropical paradise where the sun never sets, right? You could have a sunset cruise where the sunset never stops, right? Come on, think about it. Entrepreneurs out there. And then you can have a starry sky tour where you can just go watch the starry sky. And because these planets are necessarily close to the star, it means that they're going to circle the star a year. For us, that's 365 days. For these planets, it's sometimes 5 days, 6 days. So maybe we're going to have a year that's only a few days long. So if you go for a week, you can see the entire sky. You see all the constellations. Wow, I saw the entire universe. You got to go to Proxima b. That's the place to go, right? Someday. I know not now. It's science fiction. It's a joke now, and you're saying, get off the stage. But that was just him in the back. But basically, you will find yourself there someday because that's going to be one of the things that we do. We're going to have those types of things. And there might be life forms that live at the terminator, where the sun sets and leads to the cold backside. Now, if there's a good atmosphere, then the mixing of the atmosphere might keep the backside a little warmer, actually. It's one of the things we found. But at that terminator, it might be too hot in the sunset, on the sunlit side. But on that edge, right from, let's say, just as you're getting around the edge to maybe just over that terminator, that might be the life zone. And we could be seeing a whole new form of life that adapted to different conditions than we've ever had here. See? That's exciting. I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to find. What would they look like? And what if life forms developed on the dark side of that planet? And they were just indigenous to the dark side and didn't have the light? Well, maybe they'd have no eyes, like cave fish of some kind. Maybe they would navigate using sonar. instead of using any kind of night vision. So there's that possibility too. And it just leads to a whole host of different evolutionary processes, but they could all take place with carbon-based life forms too. Yeah, okay, I'm a carbon bigot. I said that, right? It's true. But the fact is, that's because the universe provides copious evidence that carbon is probably the thing that's going on mostly, So naturally, we have Proxima, and those are in approximate colors, a little bit whitish, a little more yellowy, and then this is red. And so that is pretty much the Alpha Centauri system that's nearest to us. Now, there's the next one, and I mentioned tidal locking specifically because we're going to talk about this system now. This is what we found called TRAPPIST-1. TRAPPIST-1, the TRAPPIST camera is the planetary. Well, I'll show you because I'll show you. This is TRAPPIST-1. Okay, TRAPPIST-1 is a system of 7 planets. All right, you can see them here, and don't worry about the distances. The bottom line is I want you to look at the time it takes for them to go around the star. This one here goes around the star in 1.51 days, the closest one. Okay. By contrast, Mercury takes 88 days, and its surface is hot enough to boil lead. Okay? This next planet out takes 2.42 days to go around the star. 4.05, 6.1 for the next, 9.2, that's 12, right? Yes, 12, and then approximately, 20. Okay? Well, this is important because Mercury takes 88. Mercury, if you notice, it takes 88 days to go around the sun. It's basically a third, just about, 0.4 astronomical units. That means it's almost half an astronomical unit from the sun. We're 1 astronomical unit from the sun. And this planet here is 0.06 astronomical units. The farthest one from TRAPPIST-1 is 0.06 astronomical units. And it's considered too cold to be able to support life. These 3, okay, E, F, and G, are considered the ones that probably could host life. Because, the star is going to be massive in the sky. But because the star is only 100th of the output of our sun, or even less, we know that means that the star's planets have to be a lot closer to feel the same type of life-giving radiation and so forth that we have. And that's what we'd get here. Now, we know this guy right here and this guy right here is probably standing a good chance, okay? This one's probably going to be a little bit glacial at times, but we know that they would be considered habitable planets. But they're all tidally locked. So entrepreneurs, think about two wonderful places to go and be able to have these sunset cruises and all that. Oh, that'd be great. No, I don't need a vacation. I just, I just think about those things. So this is part and parcel to understanding our own world, to basically understand what happens elsewhere. We understand us. It gives us a better understanding of the other places. Okay. Now, the Kepler Space Telescope has found an immense number of planets, as we said. And just to give you an idea, these are the names of the systems that are very, very popular, that people think are important. I don't necessarily think they're unimportant myself. And we have Kepler 186f, 62f, and on down. And, of course, the size comparison is approximately right. So these are going to be considered super-Earths, planets that are a little bigger than our own and could possibly be terrestrial, meaning like the Earth. Now, if they're rocky and have no atmosphere, they're not like the Earth, but they could be rocky and have an atmosphere. And if that atmosphere has any kind of life, it's probably going to be making oxygen, statistically speaking, and if so, that might be habitable. And just to tell you, Mars is a dead world now, apparently, but I can tell you this. Did you know that NASA has a plan on the books to actually terraform Mars? And never even going to Mars. They can terraform Mars by not even going to Mars. How in the world? That's like boil water and freeze it at the same time. It doesn't make any sense, right? And you can do both. So how would they do that? At Mars, there's a concept of creating what's called a magnetic field generator that would be set at that point in space that is called a parking spot in space. It's a Lagrange point. There's certain points where the forces of gravity, all sum to a value that's very, very low. So if you put something there, it's going to stay there. Okay? And there's a spot on Mars that's away from Mars toward the sun where there's a Lagrange point. We have one. Every planet has one. You put a satellite there or a system that generates a large magnetic field. That generating of a large magnetic field will create this gigantic magnetosphere, that's what we call these magnetic fields, that would then drape over Mars. We don't even approach Mars. It would just drape over Mars. Why would it drape over Mars? Because the solar wind pushing on this would push that draping magnetic field out over Mars. And if it did that, well, guess what? Mars has now got a little bit of a magnetic field. And Mars would be protected from the killer ultraviolet radiation that wipes out any water molecules that do form in the Martian atmosphere and kill any oxygen that does form in the Martian soils and percolates to the surface, okay? Now, if we can get this into the Martian Lagrange point, we would actually see, within 20 or 30 years, we would actually see a difference in the Martian climate. We would actually see clouds that were never there before. We might even see liquid water on the surface once the pressure gets high enough. The pressure has to come up higher than the 6 millibars it is now. And if it gets there, if it gets a little higher, then we can have liquid water on the surface. It'll be very, very cold. But then, as the atmosphere gets thicker, then a water cycle might start, like here on Earth. Evaporation, clouds, rain, percolation, again. That cycle starts, wonderful. Then there might be a carbon cycle that forms. All these things can happen, and we don't even have to go there. All we have to do is get to the Lagrange point and put something out there that would actually be perfect. And that's actually the most, that's actually the best way to terraform Mars, is to put something out there that would drape Mars in a protective sheath. My co-host on Sky Tour Radio, Amanda, she's from Nova Scotia. Never met her. She's wonderful. She calls it, oh, that's the Mars blanket. It is. It's a blanket, basically, a blanket of magnetic field that will protect Mars and allow Mars to grow its own atmosphere again. Because it's doing this, albeit slowly, but it's doing this because of the fact that these processes never stopped on Mars. They were just destroyed by the solar radiation. Ultraviolet radiation rips apart water molecules. Hydrogen goes into space. Oxygen goes down into the ground. And what's oxygen do? Well, it binds with everything. It doesn't want to be in the atmosphere. Earth has way too much oxygen because of life. Earth is in disequilibrium. It's not even in equilibrium. And that overabundance of oxygen is what these aliens want to look for, right? So in Mars, the oxygen went down into the planet and bonded with all the iron compounds and created Fe2O3, rust. That's why Mars is red. That's why Mars is red. So you see, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at there. Now, for the types of stars that, for instance, these planets are around, not the Earth, we know that's G2. These stars now have these planets have different types of stars that they're part of, and we find that they're pretty much the same everywhere we look. We don't find them around the B stars or the O stars. Those are very, very rare to find them around B stars. Less rare to find them around A, but still very rare. F and G, K and M, that's where it's at. F, G, K, and M, that's where it's at. It should be on a T-shirt, Right, I agree. So, and here's what those are. Okay, we have an M star for this particular location, a K star. Look at it, it's all Ks and Ms. This is the Kepler Hall of Fame. These are K stars and M stars, And we're not even seeing all the M stars. There's hundreds more M stars that have planets around them that are also in this category. But these are the ones that have Earth-like planets that are in the habitable zone. So if these planets actually have an atmosphere, they could have liquid water on their surface. And we know that life forms here from liquid water kind of automatically because of the way amino acids are produced. Amino acids are combined, they form the protein chains, and we end up finding this replicating proteins, which somehow approximates life, and then we end up making that magic transition, which I don't even know, okay, no one really does, into something we call life. Well, it could be happening there, and I think that's really cool. So another place besides this Kepler Hall of Fame is this place. This is HR 8799. This is images courtesy of Pete Michaud from the Keck telescope in Hawaii. And the Gemini telescope pointed out that by putting an occulting, that's not a black hole, by putting this occulting disk that is to block out the glare of the star over the star, we could actually see in infrared light these planets. Now, to see them better, this next thing shows you the planets over 10 years. Okay, here's a 10-year video. Look at them go. Yeah, I know. They're orbiting, okay? Yeah. So you see, you can actually see them orbiting now. You see this modeling occurring here. That's because the data, they weren't trying to get rid of all the, data that was, causing these modeling. They only wanted to show the planets. But look at that. That's actually, you see them orbiting. I think that's just phenomenal, And this represents a departure in our technology. We could never do this before, After this, there's another star system called Fomalhaut. And Fomalhaut actually has this dust ring around it. And within the dust ring, we identified this guy, and then a few years later, we saw that it had moved. This is a planet in the outer dust belt of this star, Fomalhaut. So this is another direct imaging view of this of an exoplanet around another star. So this is very important stuff. Now, going back to Tabby's star, we talked about this before, I think. The star has been dimming for over 100 years, and it's been kind of like this. It hasn't been just going, okay? It's been kind of dimming like this. So something's been irregularly dimming it, but it's been dimming nonetheless. That's impressive, that we could pick that up, especially over 100 years ago, okay, by consulting charts and so forth. Now, it defies all the explanations so far, and I say that even though they think they're going to close the books on it. Tabitha Boyajian doesn't want to close the book. She started a Kickstarter to find out what's going on with Tabby's star, okay? And they think that there's a big dust cloud that's kind of migrating through that part of the galaxy between us and there. And it's okay to say that, but where's the galaxy? I mean, not galaxy, the dust cloud. Where's the dust cloud? We haven't seen a dust cloud. It's a theory. Why would you close the books just because you think it's a theory? That's like saying, no such thing as alien life. You all go home now. Yeah, how about no? Okay? I told you last year and this year about the alien hunting system we're developing. That's a scientific approach. We're not going to stop. Just because the government's come to us and said to. We're not going to do that. They didn't. They actually called, though. They did. So this Tabby star, it defies explanation. Tabby star is right there, by the way. There's a blue cross. You probably can't see it. So that said, the causes surmised so far are a swarm of comets, okay, planets in collision, boom, and dust stuff and debris causing it. That could be true. I mean, a science guy, I can't say it's wrong. We don't know. But don't close out explanations. Don't close it out just because you have an idea. See, a hypothesis is an idea. A proof isn't an idea. A proof is the conclusion, the proven conclusion. All right? And we don't have that with this. So they have to work on that. All right? They also say it could be Kepler instrument error because it was found in the Kepler Space Telescope. That one's been dispelled. I'll tell you why. Because it was seen over 100 years ago. There was nobody that had a Kepler Space Telescope 100 years ago. Okay? Can you tell I'm excited? So it's all very possible. Now, the other possibility is, like we talked about, the Dyson sphere. Okay? That's the very improbable spherical encasement of a star that they're building slowly and causing it to dim. Like I said, I think it would be swarms of satellites that would be absorbing this radiation. So the bottom line here is that we have a great big universe out there that we don't understand. We know that we have 74% of it is what we call dark energy, maybe. I'll tell you why that may not be true either. And 22% is dark matter, maybe. I'll tell you why that might not be true either. Okay, and then we have this little tiny bit left. It works out to about 4% that what we really know of the universe. That's true. Okay, that's true. First of all, dark matter, we assign, dark just means don't understand. It doesn't mean it's black, you can't see it because it's too dark. It doesn't mean visibly. It just means an unknown. To call it unknown matter would be probably better, But, astronomers, they love to just throw these things out there. It's dark matter. Wow, that sounds impressive. But the fact of the matter is, unknown matter would just sound silly. They don't want to make it sound like they don't know what it is. Well, of course you don't know what it is, So anyway, this dark matter, it turns out that there was a study done that shows that the universe is actually filled with lots of filaments of stuff. And guess what made people think about that? Okay, that was found when people discovered something that we already talked about in the beginning, and that was fast radio bursts. These signals that were coming from distant stars, distant galaxies even. And these bursts, these signals, the faintest of signals that we've been talking about this whole talk, this actually shows us what's in between the vast galaxies. So we have dark matter, maybe, but it turns out that this dark matter is something that's actually possibly just matter between galaxies. And when the fast radio bursts pass through it, they give away the material that exists between the galaxies. We see it. There's only been about 90 found so far, 91 or 2 actually. And of those fast radio bursts, there's been a few that actually showed us that their light changed because of the matter they were passing through between the galaxy and us. And that change is something that helped us figure out what's between the vast galaxies. We always thought it was empty. It's not empty. There's stuff there. And that showed us that we have a lot to learn, but it also showed us that maybe what we call dark matter doesn't exist at all. And maybe we're looking at something that's, filamentary between the galaxies. We see lots of galaxies out there. We image them in Sky Tour live stream all the time that show tails of material swooping behind them, hundreds of thousands of light years in length. This is stuff that we think is probably where dark matter resides. And it could be that we're looking at what used to be called dark matter are just this filamentary matter that we couldn't see until these fast radio bursts went coursing through it and showed itself to us. And that's a very strong possibility. And the dark energy, dark energy is also on the table, on the chopping block, and might not be there at all. Might not be a need for it anymore, And why? Well, because we used to think that dark energy was this material on the outside of the universe, pulling the universe out more. Why would we think that? Because when we check the expansion rate of the universe, from the Big Bang, it explodes. Well, it could have gone 2 ways. Explodes, slows down, stops, and just stays there forever, expanding at a fairly known rate for the rest of eternity. Or it reaches this potential place where the gravity begins to overpower it, slows it down, stops it, and comes down, and the Big Bang happens again. So it's like a pulsating universe, over many, many, many billions of years. Well, that would all be well and good, except we noticed that when this expansion is taking place, it's actually accelerating. Wait, what? It's accelerating. Like the very beginning of an explosion, you get an acceleration initially, then it starts to slow down. Well, that acceleration that was noticed in the expansion of the universe might be attributable to some other processes. So the jury's out on dark energy too. I love the slide, but it's boring. It's a pie chart. Who cares? I'd rather show one big yellow swath that says the known universe, we understand it all. Not yet. But as time moves on, we're going to actually be able to create, for sure, interstellar vehicles. And these interstellar vehicles are going to be vehicles that use a process known as warping space. I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Who's heard of Miguel Alcubierre? One hand, two hands, and mine. Okay. 3 people in here. How many people have heard of the real, not Star Trek, warp drive? More hands. Good. That's Miguel Alcubierre. So you know him kind of indirectly. Okay, Alcubierre came up with this concept which basically said that you could actually bend space if you had the amount of energy required to do it. We know that black holes do it, don't we? We watch it happen, and light follows the curves, all right? So, but if this was a distance from here to Alpha Centauri, right, that corner-to-corner distance is a long distance to ride, 4.3 light years. But suppose you could warp space and fold the corners up till they're almost touching, and just jump across the gap, then unfold space. 5 days to Alpha Centauri. Now, the energy to do that, to create that warp, only the amount of converting the entire planet Jupiter to energy. E equals mc squared. Energy equals the mass of Jupiter times the speed of light squared. Oh, wow. That's an impossible number. Even an advanced society probably couldn't muster that much energy, frankly. So Alcubierre put it on the shelf. Wow, that's a great, it's called a tensor. That's a great tensor, Alcubierre, Miguel, but let's put it on the shelf. Enter Sonny White from NASA's Eagle Works Labs. Sonny goes in and he looks at this ring that is designed into Alcubierre's ship, right? Because the ring is generating this warp bubble that's called to create this bend. And he says, wait a minute, we can redesign that. And he redesigns it so that you don't need the energy of Jupiter anymore converted to energy. We could do this like with 10 to the 26th power less energy. Wait, what? You could do it with something the mass of the Voyager spacecraft. And NASA went, whoosh, really? And that's why Sonny White now has a funded lab to research this Alcubierre drive. So we are researching interstellar travel, folks, right now. And it's Sonny White. He should be a speaker. Yeah, if he can tear himself away. You know, you guys probably wouldn't understand a thing he said, but you know what? It'd be the most fun in the world because you could sit there and like throw little things at him and stuff. It'd be fun, you know, I'm sure. But you know, I know I joke a lot, but the fact is, this is just the beginning for us. And the techniques we use to see a black hole in a distant galaxy 55 million light years away, and to see the stars swirling around their own black hole in the center of our galaxy, to see planets around other stars, do you feel it? Do you feel that energy of discovery? I mean, we're on the cusp, and now when the James Webb Telescope goes up, it's going to have the resolution far beyond Hubble. Hubble's 8 feet in diameter, the mirror. James Webb's 21 feet in diameter. And there's something called the Dawes limit, which is basically defines the resolution of a telescope. Amateur astronomers, raise your hands. Oh, man, I'm the only one. I'm the only astronomer in the room. I'll just leave. The fact is, okay, the Dawes limit, I'm not going to calculate it, but I'm just saying the Dawes limit specifies the resolution, and trust me when I tell you that it relates to the diameter of the mirror. Okay? So the James Webb Telescope is going to have several times the resolution of the Hubble. And we love what the Hubble looks like. And we love what the Hubble shows us. So we're going to have a lot more resolution. So that means that we're going to have a whole new era of discovery. We're going to have a tremendously new number of planets through the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite. Yeah, that's TESS. Okay, 20,000 new planets. Wow. I could literally just do handsprings thinking about it. Yeah, I know, that's the stuff that excites me. Go figure, I have no life. So, but the fact is, okay, when you look at what the discoveries are showing us now, it can mean that only mean that in 5 years, we're going to have a tremendous amount of data and lots more planets to categorize. I think that the habitable number of planets in our galaxy is going to rise. And currently, estimates put it between 25 million at the low end. And this is a rework of something called the Drake equation, okay, from when Frank Drake created this equation. Basically, through a number of factors you multiply together, they're all less than 1, The closer you get to 1 at the end of the calculation, then the more possibilities there are for planets, okay? If it's greater than 1, yay, there's a lot more planets than 1. Well, it always worked out to 1, us, because we didn't know anything about number of planets around stars, number of worlds that survived their nuclear era, number of worlds that actually utilized the energy to create interstellar travel. We didn't know any of that stuff. We still only knew one of those things, number of Earth-like planets. We're getting there. We're getting there. And I know that before long, we're going to have a lot more answers. But the answer I have right now is good enough for me, and that is that the journey continues, the missions continue, and we're going to find that world that we're going to live on again, because we're going to be moving off the Earth when the sun dies. And that's another lecture. I don't want to be interfering with your break time here, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you have no questions and you just like to sleep, go right ahead. Yeah. The question was, she read some time ago that the solar system we live in was created in another galaxy, and that the galaxy that it was created in collided with our galaxy, and thus we're here. We have no way of knowing that. Okay, that's really wonderful. That's a great thought. But we do know that the Andromeda galaxy is heading right for us. Okay, it's 2 million light years away. It's the only galaxy you can actually see with your eye when you look up besides our own. Okay, and it's in Andromeda, the constellation. It's about that big in the sky. Okay, and it's heading for us, and we're going to see it in a few billion years. It's going to be that big in the sky in a few billion years, and then it's going to be part of us. And when galaxies collide, they don't go smash, boom, ba-boom, and they don't cause big explosions. They sort of pass through each other. And then the gravity takes over and makes new galaxy shapes from that. We see that all the time now in the universe. But I don't think that we can tell. I can't deny it, but I know that we can't tell. But that's a great question. It's a wonderful speculative thing to think about. Yeah. Planet X, Nibiru, yeah.
Extremely eccentric orbit that comes in from behind the sun. What do you think?
Well, we actually, the question is, what do I think about Planet X, Nibiru, extremely eccentric orbit coming in from behind the sun, etc.? First of all, it doesn't have to come in from behind the sun. It could be anywhere out there. And that object you're talking about, if it were to exist, would be in the Kuiper belt, which is beyond the planet Neptune and Pluto, and out in this disk of icy objects that's out there. If there was something the size of a planet out there, it would be affecting Pluto's orbit, Neptune's orbit of Uranus, and Saturn's orbit, and maybe Jupiter. And we would have caught that. We don't see that. Even something as far away, all right, as that might be rumored to be, we would not. It wouldn't be able to escape detection. We would see the slight perturbations, that is the movements caused by this object, and we don't see that. So is it there? I can't say it's not. I can just say there's no evidence for it. Incidentally, here's something interesting for you. Do you realize that our solar system goes out to the planets, obviously, and then we have this Kuiper belt where there's icy objects. Then we have something called the Oort cloud, which is a cloud of comets, sort of a semi-spherical cloud, okay, around our solar system. Do you know that Oort cloud actually extends 3/4 of the way to Alpha Centauri? 3/4 of the way. That means that our sun can retain objects around it several light years out. And that's pretty cool. That was actually unknown for the longest time. It was an unknown thing. Any other questions? Oh, I thought everybody out. See, that's the thing. Yeah.
I know when you said that the light was, would you say, 20 years behind from the stars?
Oh, yeah. You're always looking back in time, yeah.
So from the stars' perspective, looking back on Earth, would they be looking at my light from 10 years ago? Something I did in the past?
If there's a star 20 light years away, and you could have a magic telescope that you could look at the Earth from that star, you'd see the Earth 20 years ago. You'd be like, you'd be like this little, would that be you? You say, that's me. And you snap pictures because you say, I don't have any baby pictures. I'm getting some now. And you get these pictures of you. That's a great thing. But that's an excellent thought because you've worked it out. You've worked this out. That's excellent. Well done. Did you have a question?
The distance from the sun on those like Kepler planets and stuff like that were just days in their
Yes. It's a TRAPPIST-1 system, yeah.
does that mean that they're traveling at a higher speed to where they would not be able to retain an atmosphere?
No, I know what you're getting at. And the question is, if the planets around TRAPPIST-1 that we talked about, the 7 planets that are tidally locked, because they're closer to the star, does it mean they're traveling at a much higher speed, so much so that they couldn't generate an atmosphere? The answer is no, and here's why. Because there's nothing in space to strip that atmosphere away from them. It's empty, right? I mean, they're forming, and they formed in this area. All the debris and stuff has been sucked up into these planets. So there's nothing for them to have hitting them to take this away. It's possible that a solar flare of sorts could be, from the star, sun flare, could actually cause maybe some of this atmosphere to be torn away. M stars are actually notorious for having these violent flares. Okay, that's one of the mitigating factors about saying that they're habitable areas. But still, you could actually have a planet with atmosphere there, so not bad. But I want to thank you guys. You've been wonderfully attentive, and you kept your eyes open.